everybody. I hope you're having a good day so far, and I hope you had a good weekend. Um, I sure did. I mentioned that yesterday that I had a really good weekend, but um, I'm extremely tired. So if I sound tired, it's because I am. I had a lot of internet issues, and it's been going in and out since like the beginning of this month, and we've also had like 5 outages since the beginning of this month. And I was actually looking into it, and apparently a lot of Spectrum customers across the US are also having issues. I know that last night, I don't know, sometime after 11 p.m., there was somebody outside working on it. So it's back on now. So it was out from like 6 o'clock last night until whatever time they got done fixing it. So I have no idea what time that was. So it was out for quite a while, but I'm hoping that whatever they did out there is what fixes it from us constantly losing internet. It's like the modem shuts off and just restarts itself all on its own. And, I need internet. And of course, we all need the internet. We use it all the time. So it's like it's hard to go without it when that's what you use, for most of the things that you do. Anyway, so it's back on. So far, so good. I haven't had any issues since it came back on, so that's nice. And I hope that that's the end of it. Um, so since it's fixed, I will be calling and demanding at least half a month's credit. I would prefer to get the whole month, but I think they'll only prorate for the days you had issues. So that would be at least 2 weeks, which would be nice and it'd help. Um, because when you can't use it properly, what are you paying for? So I'll get that taken care of. Anyway, a lot to go over today. A lot of interesting stories. So let's do our daily promise. It says, He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23, 3 and 4. The Lord leads us in the paths of righteousness, and sometimes those paths lead through the valley of the shadow of death. Though it is hard to walk through these valleys, we can praise Him because He leads us into the valley of the shadow of death and not the valley of death itself. Take heart that even in these tremulous times, the Lord's hand is mighty, and truly we need fear no evil. That actually really goes along with like what we're dealing with right now in the country and in society. Um, as a Christian and having faith in God, as bleak as it may look, we really have no reason to fear like ourselves. Now maybe we can be fearful for the salvation of loved ones, but outside of that, we really have nothing to fear because, and I don't remember what scripture it is. So I'm pretty decent at recalling scripture verses, but not where they're located. That's the part that I'm terrible at. But it's greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So that's a good one to remember. I'll have to look it up because I just don't remember where it's at. The first thing I want to get to, I saw this post pop up on Instagram, and I can't remember if I've heard about this story already or if I never heard about it because there's so many stories that we don't ever hear about that the media never covers. But in San Antonio, there was a man who killed a cop and he got the death sentence. Um, it was a San Antonio detective, and I think his last name is McCain. Detective Marconi, who was 50, and it says it was in front of witnesses while the detective was writing a ticket during an overtime shift. So I don't believe I heard this ever. This is not a familiar story to me. So let's read about it. A Texas man who fatally shot a San Antonio police officer twice in the head. Oh, this happened in 2016. Was sentenced to death on Friday. So it happened in 2016. That's probably why I didn't hear about it. I was not involved in paying attention to all this stuff in 2016. Otis McCain, 36, was found guilty of capital murder July 26th in the execution style slaying of Detective Benjamin Marconi. McCain claimed that Marconi, a 20-year veteran, was a random target of his anger, but prosecutors said the defendant had been stalking the detective and planning his heinous and unspeakable murder, according to the San Antonio Express-News. The Bexar County jury deliberated for 7.5 hours Friday before recommending the sentence. It took less than 30 minutes for the jury to find him guilty, according to the Express-News. Okay, so they took 30 minutes to find him guilty, 7.5 hours to decide on his sentence. See, this is why um, criminals in Texas don't get away with stuff like that, because um, we just we don't play those games of bowing to people, um, under pressure. I'm very sure that BLM is going to step up and demand that his sentence be dropped from the death penalty. And I pray and hope that they do not buckle under that pressure, because he deserves what he gets. And, um, if you don't want to take the risk of being convicted and sentenced to the death penalty, then don't kill somebody. It's that simple. It's not hard to not kill someone. It's very easy to not do. Lots of people go their whole entire lives without killing people. It's really not hard. I would think that it takes more of a person to kill somebody. That's harder to do. So I don't understand why people do it, because it's so much easier to just not, honestly. But he deserves what he gets, and I hope that they do not let BLM step in and, um, demand that, at the very least, that it gets dropped to a life sentence. Nope, he deserves the death penalty. Absolutely. Um, all right. McCain killed Marconi 50 on a busy street in front of witnesses while the detective was writing a ticket during an overtime shift. The murder was caught on security camera video. As he was being taken to jail following the shooting, McCain told reporters that he lashed out at someone who didn't deserve it because he was upset with the court system. McCain said he was angry because he had not been allowed to see his son during a custody battle. I would feel like that's almost, not almost, that type of behavior is more dangerous than someone who deliberately sets out to kill a certain person. Someone who just lashes out at a random person out of anger, that means they have no impulse control and they have no way to keep their own emotions in check, which means they could have hurt anybody at any time. That's more dangerous. So I think you're better off to say that that was the intended target and you intended that. But to say that you just lashed out at the first random person you came across, that makes you a huge danger. I wouldn't tell people that I have no control over myself, my actions, or my emotions, that I could just kill anybody at any time if I get too angry. Zach Briggs tweeted out, jury to begin deliberation shortly on whether to give Otis McCain life in prison without parole or the death penalty for killing of Detective Benjamin Marconi. Extra sheriff's deputies surrounded McCain during the sentencing Friday after he attacked a bailiff on July 26, when jurors found him guilty. The jury could have recommended a sentence of life imprisonment without parole. See, no impulse control. Now he lashes out and attacks somebody else because he's not happy with the verdict. It's like, get yourself under control. You're a grown adult. Control yourself. Um, The family of murdered San Antonio, Texas police detective Benjamin Marconi released a statement after Otis McCain was sentenced to death. So this was their statement. With the ending of this emotional trial, we would like to take a moment to thank several parties involved. Thank you to District Attorney Joe Gonzalez and his entire office, to Tamara Strock, Mario Del Parado, and Jessica Schultz. From the bottom of our hearts, we are extremely proud of all the hard work you put into bringing justice for Ben and finding closure for our family. To Judge Rangel, for the 379th court staff and the jury who served on this trial. Your professionalism went above and beyond expectations. Thank you to the city of San Antonio and Bexar County, city of Floresville and Wilson County. Y'all have our hearts. You have stood by our family for the past 4.5 years, and we are eternally grateful for the outpouring kindness and support you have shown. Thank you for allowing our family to grieve peacefully through this trauma. Thank you to the San Antonio Police Department and Bexar County Sheriff's Department. Your family and you forever will be. We love each and every one of you like our own. Thank you to the 100 Club, cops and sub, is it SAPOA? Your unwavering presence during these last few years and throughout the trial has been honorable and infinitely appreciated. Thank you to the many friends and family who attended the trial, who are deeply humbled for the we are deeply humbled for the amount of love, prayer, and grace we felt through each and every one of you. And finally, to Detective Benjamin Edward McConey, thank you for making our lives better and the lives of everyone you touched. You are eternally missed, and we will never forget you. Rest easy, sweet Ben. So, an appeal of the conviction and sentence is automatic. McCain has an extensive record dating back to his teen years. Marconi's family, in a statement, thanked the prosecutors and district attorney. Um, so, he has a long rap sheet, apparently, all the way from when he was a teenager. So, I wonder if I can find that. What would that call it? Arrest record. Um, oh, so when this happened in November 21st of 2016, he ambushed and killed him. And then he got married the Monday after the killing before his arrest. Okay. Wow. That's nuts. So during the court hearing, when he was given the verdict, he elbowed the bailiff in the face. So his criminal record. Okay, we need to look at this. A psychiatrist testifying for the state said convicted cop killer Otis McCain is a sociopath. That collided Thursday with the theory of the defense's expert that he isn't one, culminating in a grilling by prosecutors over what to call McCain's violent outburst in court a week earlier. Testifying for the defense, forensic psychiatrist J. Douglas Crowder called McCain's attack on a court bailiff 44 seconds after he's found guilty of capital murder for killing a police officer disconcerting and disturbing, but stopped short of saying it means he poses a future threat. The clashing testimony matters because the jury still has to decide. Okay, blah, blah, blah. He has had opportunities to harm law enforcement officers. In this case, he did it, but he had just received a guilty verdict, Crowder said. It was disturbing to him, but beyond that provocation and delivery of the verdict, it may or may not mean anything in the future. Okay. Moments after the jury left the room after finding him guilty, McCain sprang from his chair and elbowed a bailiff in the face. A dozen deputies wrestled him to the floor. Okay. Testimony established McCain was angry that he did not get help from law enforcement when he tried to file a visitation violation against his ex girlfriend to see his son. McCain has said he lashed out at the first police officer he saw. Jurors, well into more than 10 hours of testimony over 2 days by psychiatrists presenting dueling analysis, one saying McCain poses a future threat, the other saying he does not, appeared confused and bored Thursday, twisting in their chairs. Crowder disputed the assessment of the state's witness, forensic psychiatrist Michael Arambula, who testified Wednesday that McCain was a sociopath and remains a danger to the community because he displayed all 7 of the criteria for antisocial personality disorder. Um, okay, so Crowder said McCain's problem stemmed from growing up in a poor neighborhood, a juvenile criminal record that started at 13 when he got a butcher knife and chased after a cousin over a hamburger, not being able to hold a job, and drug use that consisted of cocaine, marijuana, and K2 spice, a synthetic cannabinoid. Crowder said cannabis addiction and K2 could cause psychosis. Okay, first of all, you just said at 13 he got a butcher knife and chased his cousin because of a hamburger. And you're telling me that somehow now he doesn't pose a future threat? He's been posing a threat since he was 13 years old. Maybe sooner. Maybe. These people that want to make excuses for criminals. He grew up in a poor neighborhood. Yeah, me too. I did too. When I was younger, it was a much more poor neighborhood than where I ended up living when I started the end of middle school all through high school. A much poorer area. Yet here I am, not a criminal. Um, so I, I can't I can't fathom them acting like because you grow up poor that somehow means you are going to be a criminal. No. How many rich people are criminals? There are a lot, just like there's a lot of criminals that are poor, but that's not what decides whether you're going to be a criminal or not. You choose it. That's your choice. So stop acting like because people grow up poor that they have no choice but to be a criminal. Except if it were a white person that grew up in a poor neighborhood and killed a cop. Well, it wouldn't be because he grew up in a poor neighborhood. It would just be because, they're criminal. They're bad people. They are a danger. I don't like how we've gotten to the point where we start making excuses for black people as if they have no agency of their own to make their own choices. They do. And when they make the wrong ones, they deserve whatever they get. I won't continue on with the story because it'll make me mad. Get off my page. Okay. Let's see. Which one do I want to talk about now? Oh, let's talk about Joe Biden once again saying he's coming for our guns. Okay. We know that he's been saying this and they're trying to do whatever they can to take our guns away, right? Because that makes us less likely to fight against, the tyrannical regime that's running this country. But he says, no, seriously, I'm coming for your guns. That's not malarkey. All right. This is obviously written by Brodigan from Louder with Crowder. I always love his articles because at least there's a hint of humor in them. Um, my position is that as long as we agree on the First and Second Amendment, we can respectfully disagree on almost everything else. Joe Biden is an enemy of both. The most popular president ever appeared on CNN last month and told America he wants to ban a lot of guns, including some pistols. PolitiFact was quick to come to his defense, claiming he didn't say what he actually said. The independent fact checkers may need to clean up after President Puddinghead some more. Yesterday he said again what they said he didn't say the last time. So, Young Americans for Liberty tweeted out Joe Biden again calls for a ban on assault weapons and high capacity magazines, which he claims includes all rifles and pistols that hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition. It doesn't violate anybody's Second Amendment rights. Yes, it does. Because if you're a terrible shot, I guarantee you, you need at least 10 bullets, especially if you're under duress. I could almost guarantee it. I would, I think. I don't know if I could do it within 10 shots. What if there's three people? What if there's four? It absolutely violates your rights. He said the idea anyone needs for a pistol and or a rifle 10 rounds, it just makes no sense. Zero. It doesn't violate anyone's Second Amendment rights to do that. Um, the idea anyone needs a pistol with 6 rounds makes no sense. It doesn't violate the Second Amendment. That comes from um, Kamala Harris. So, um, the idea like anyone needs like a pistol makes no sense. It doesn't violate the Second Amendment. Also, guns are like white supremacy. An overly dramatic President AOC while she frantically waves her arms. The idea anyone needs a Second Amendment doesn't make sense. President Nancy Pelosi's head preserved in a jar. And America goes slip sliding away down the slope. Love it. Even before Biden's last two performances, even before he got elected president or installed as president, we shall say, he said he's coming for our guns. He's trying to put failed Uncle Arthur impersonator David Chipman in charge of taking our guns. The media is fond of saying conservatives are paranoid about people coming for our tools of self defense. Biden can't be any more clear about it. He's a speech away from holding up a sign of a Walther with a ban sign over it and pointing it at the camera saying, "This means you." This White House shows a lot at us to worry about, like a lot, a lot. But Biden's hatred of guns and the Second Amendment is always something he circles back to. We can divide amongst ourselves who is paying attention to reckless spending and who is paying attention to the border crisis. Every time Joe says the word pistol, stop what you're doing and make sure everyone knows about it. Yeah, I would. This video that is on YouTube from Loud of His Crowd of the Common Sense Gun Reform, he talks to a lot of people about guns, and it's a lot of liberals, and they know absolutely nothing about guns at all. They're very dumb when it comes to guns. And while I have admitted that I don't know a lot about guns myself, I do know more than what they know. But if I don't know something about guns, I will let you know. I won't just make it up. I'll be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure. But I at least know I have a right to own whatever gun I want to own that is not. I know there are certain types of guns that you can't own, but we've covered this before that before a certain time that a law was passed, private citizens could actually buy machine guns. And you're allowed to still own it if it was purchased legally before that date without it was implemented that you no longer could. And I had no clue that that was the thing. But now, obviously, you can't own fully automatic weapons, and I get that. I know that. Anyway, the whole gun thing with these politicians is they know absolutely nothing of what they're talking about, so they should shut up. Um, let's see. This next article, I don't know. It says that there's four radical Democrat proposals that we may have missed this year, and I was curious as to what those proposals might have been. Oh, no, I can't read it because I don't have a reader's pass anymore. I can't read this one. Okay, well, I bet you I can find it though. I bet you I can find it somewhere else. Let's see. Okay, well, this one is four, so we can look at this. Okay, let's see what this says. It's no secret that the 2020 election cycle left the Republican Party in a precarious spot. Precarious, let me say that right. Following November's election, Americans were left facing a Democrat majority in the House of Representatives, a Senate split right down the middle, with Kamala Harris serving as a tiebreaker, and a Democrat president in the White House. As they headed into 2021, the Democrats wasted no time with their newly acquired power and got to work right away, attempting to push alarmingly radical policies into law. From infringements on the Second Amendment to blows against election integrity, here are four examples you might have missed. Okay, so most of us talked about the For the People Act of 2021, which was March 3rd, 2021. The House of Representatives passed it, known as H.R. 1. It was sponsored by John P. Sarbanes, I guess. It was advertised as common sense legislative measure designed to supposedly provide Americans with easier, more reliable access to the voting process. HR1 includes various policies that expand mail-in voting, early voting, automatic registration, and same-day registration. The bill also aims to replace restrictions on state voter identification requirements by allowing citizens to sign a sworn written statement instead of showing their legal identification. The given reasoning behind the crackdown on voter ID focuses on the claim that identification requirements are excessively onerous and disproportionately burden minority communities. Um, the Heritage Foundation outlined three key reasons why the bill should be opposed. First, it would usurp the role of the states in elections and ultimately damage the integrity of the voting process as a whole. Second, citizenships and identities should be authenticated before casting a ballot. And third, that it is not Congress's job to try and fix election related issues since federal intervention would only make existing problems worse. Absolutely. Um, if you are watching, I love this picture on the screen. Annabelle was scared. Annabelle is like that haunted doll that you've probably seen on the internet or on YouTube, and Joe Biden is sniffing her. That's great. I absolutely love that. Okay. Um, let's see. The fate of the bill will be decided by the United States Senate. Um, those who oppose the Democrats for the People Act points that the removal of identification requirements endangers America's republic and should be condemned. Valid identification is already required to drive, drink, and purchase a firearm, and to maintain logical consistency, identification should be required to vote. Absolutely. Um, Bipartisan Background Checks Act of 2021. This I've never heard of. So this is HR 8, more commonly known as the Bipartisan Background Checks Act of 2021, was passed by the House of Representatives on March 11th, 2021. The final tally was 227 votes to 203, with all but one Democrat members voting yes alongside 8 Republicans. The bill requires a federal background check for nearly every change of possession of firearm goes through, even those which are temporary or private. Temporary? Are you saying if I loan a gun to my brother to go hunting because he likes my gun better, we have to do a background check to do that temporary exchange for him to borrow it for one hunting trip? I feel like that's what that's saying. According to an analysis of the bill conducted by the NRA, simply handing a firearm to another person would, in many cases, become a criminal offense. This is nuts. I hope this doesn't ever pass. The original sponsor of the bill is Representative Mike Thompson of California. When explaining the legislation, Thompson claimed it was to help prevent gun violence and keep our community safe. Can I just say for a second that laws passed for gun safety, it doesn't affect criminals. They are going to break the law no matter what. But what you are doing are you are putting law abiding citizens in a very sticky situation to where they become criminals themselves and have no way of defending their family, their property, and their rights against a tyrannical government, which obviously is what they want. I'm just saying, they just brush it off like it's to help keep communities safe. You want to help keep communities safe, start arresting the criminals and actually keeping them in jail for once. Stop letting them back out on the streets. Hello? Okay. Conversely, critics argue that Thompson and others are being misleading. They claim that the bill is not about safety, but rather exists as an outright attack against law abiding gun owners. The bill now awaits a vote in the U.S. Senate. I pray to God it doesn't go through. The Enhanced Background Checks Act of 2021, which is H.R. 1446, it was passed March 11th, 2021, with a final vote of 219 to 210. The bill was sponsored by Representative James E. Clyburn, South Carolina, and aims to eliminate the Charleston loophole, named after the Charleston shooting in 2015 that left 9 individuals dead inside of the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. The Charleston loophole is a term used to describe an event where an individual obtains a firearm after their mandatory background check takes longer than 3 business days to complete. The so-called loophole is possible because of an amendment to the 1993 Brady Bill made 3 days the maximum amount of time an uncompleted background check can prevent an individual from obtaining a firearm. The proposed bill would raise the firearm hold limit to a maximum of 10 business days, meaning Americans could expect wait periods of over 3 times the length they experience now. Numerous experts on the Second Amendment have weighed in, including Larry Keene of the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Keene claims the bill increases the burden on small business firearm retailer owners and flips the burden of proof on its head. This would make it incumbent upon the law abiding citizen to prove his or her innocence to the government to exercise their Second Amendment right to purchase a firearm instead of the government being responsible for proving an individual is prohibited. This could potentially deny a law abiding citizen their rights for up to a month while they are saddled with the burden of proving their innocence. That's un American. The Enhanced Background Checks Act of 2021 was passed the same day as the Bipartisan Background Checks Act, and they both aim to complete the same goal: outright suppression of the firearm rights of millions of law abiding citizens across the country. The U.S. Senate will vote next to determine the fate of the bill. I can almost guarantee you that law abiding citizens, if any of this stuff is passed and we thus become the criminals, we're just, most people are just going to be criminals because they're not going to give them up. So you've just made over half the country criminals that were not. President Biden's flurry of executive orders. Okay, so he wasted no time, released a flurry of executive orders. President Biden broke the record for the most executive orders in a president's first week. According to the Daily Wire's Ian Haworth, when it comes to Biden's executive order on strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, federal agencies will be directed to expand access to Obamacare and effectively work towards a long-term goal of achieving socialized medicine. Um, if they're supposed to be making that better, since it was implemented, I'm still unable to afford Obamacare health insurance. Like I said, either the monthly premium is super high with a low deductible, or your deductible is extremely high with a lower premium. Either way, it's unaffordable. Yet, I, at that time, was at the point that not having insurance when I filed my taxes would penalize me for not having insurance. I had a child, though, who was on Medicaid, which actually kept me from having to pay that penalty. But that's not the point. Had I not had a child to claim on my taxes, I would have been penalized because I couldn't afford what they implemented that they said is so affordable for all Americans. But it's not. And I wasn't below that threshold of that I couldn't afford it. So if you're so poor, we won't penalize you. I wasn't below that. It's nuts. Um, Okay, on the official website of Representative AOC, she is unapologetic advocate of Medicare for all, which would create a universal single-payer healthcare system. Just go talk to Canadians and see how much they like it. AOC is too far left and doesn't represent the entirety of the Democrat Party, though. So what about the sitting vice president? In a 2019 op-ed from Medium, Kamala Harris claimed that when she was a presidential candidate at the time, in America, healthcare should be a right, not a privilege, only for those who can afford it. It's why we need Medicare for all. Well, healthcare is a privilege. It is not a right. It is not a necessity. It is a commodity. Just so you know. That's how it was instituted. That's what it is. Biden's executive order on strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act is simply the Democrats taking another step towards making socialized medicine a reality. Wonderful. Another alarmingly radical executive order, known as the Memorandum of Protecting Women's Health at Home and Abroad, rescinds the Mexico City policy, which would allocate taxpayer dollars to abortions taking place outside the U.S. It should come as a surprise to no one that the Democrats are taking advantage of the control they have in multiple branches of the federal government. That's the way politics work. No, it's not, because when Republicans have all that power, they do nothing. However, the question that every American needs to be asking themselves is how far or how radical, excuse me, I gotta go on, will they go before midterms hit in 2022? Yeah. I honestly think they've gone way, way too far and they're overstepping that line. And a lot of people are not liking it, even on the left. And they need to be careful. Okay. So I don't know what all of this stuff is about. If I can read it, and I can't. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to cover this one. So this is a female inmate pregnant after being forced to share prison with biological men claiming to be transgender. And you wonder why people are so against allowing men to share the woman's space when the woman deserves her privacy. This is the kind of stuff that happens, and it absolutely could have been prevented. I don't care if that man thinks or truly believes or is just pretending to be a woman. They should never be put in the same place as a woman. Do people not think that these people, that these men, because they're dirty, disgusting men, would just pretend it's not real because they want to be around women? Wouldn't you much rather be housed with women than a bunch of men in prison? So, what an easy way to do that than to just act like you're a woman, and because everybody's afraid of hurting your fragile feelings, they put you in there with women. And then you have access to all these women and you're living it up. It's disgusting. And our leaders and the people that work at the prison should absolutely, they should all be fired. They should all go away. They should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen to this woman. That's, I don't care what she's in prison for. It's unfair to her. She didn't ask for that. Anyway, a female inmate in California is now pregnant after women's prisons were forced to accept biological male prisoners claiming to be women without any questions asked. The Blaze reported that a liberal women's organization, Women's Liberation Front, or WOLF, has reported that at least one woman has become pregnant following California's law that allows men to identify as women and get sent to a women's prison, even if they were in prison for violence against women. As the Daily Wire reported last month, California began handing out condoms and Plan B to female inmates who were forced to accept sharing a prison with biological men claiming to be transgender. So, right there, they're handing out condoms and Plan B to the female inmates. That is them saying, we know there's a high chance of you being molested and raped, and you could possibly get pregnant from these men. So here's some safety precautions just in case that happens. Because we're not going to protect you from being raped, but we will protect you from actually having a baby. Are you kidding me? At the time, the Wolf released a statement about what was being handed out in prisons. Women incarcerated in California's largest women's prison are describing the conditions as a nightmare's worst nightmare after the introduction of new pregnancy resources in the Central California's women facility medical clinics. Let me just run off on a tangent. You know how the left is always saying, "Believe all women, protect women, women deserve rights, blah blah blah. It's the patriarchy." Yet they're literally handing over sex slaves to men in prison? Is that not how they're going to be treated with these men in there? You tell me. It's bad. This is a very, very bad and dangerous situation because either the women are going to get so sick and tired of what's going on that they're going to attack and possibly kill the men that are in there doing that, or a woman's going to end up getting killed while she's being attacked by one of the men. And then I think the prison will be sued. They should already be sued. The new resources are a tactic to mission by officials that women should expect to be right, that women should expect to be raped when housed in prison with men, where all sex is considered non-consensual by default within the system. Right. So even if you consent, even if the guy asks you and you say yes, it's still non-consensual because you're in prison. I mean, I get that. Um, New posters recently appeared in medical rooms outlining the options available to pregnant people in prison. including prenatal care, abortion, and adoption. The poster also declares that women have the right to contraceptive counseling and your choice of birth control methods by a licensed healthcare provider within 60 to 180 days prior to scheduled release date. However, the only methods available to incarcerated women to prevent pregnancy are condoms, which appeared shortly after the men, and Plan B emergency contraceptives. Except Plan B is not a foolproof way of not getting pregnant because Plan B only works if the egg has not implanted yet. If that has already taken place, Plan B will do absolutely nothing at all. It only prevents you from conceiving. It doesn't it doesn't perform like an abortion by pill after you've conceived. It just nothing will happen. You'll still be pregnant. So it's not a fail safe, and neither are condoms, clearly. And I mean, honestly, if the men are sexually assaulting these women, you think they're going to take the time to put on a condom? Come on. They're not. They're not affected by it. The law requiring women's prisons to accept biologically male prisoners went into effect in January. The Los Angeles Times reported that since then, around 300 male prisoners filed requests to transfer with the state, and only 20 have been processed so far. So, obviously, yes, a lot of them are now requesting it because they're sick of living with men. They would like to be around some women. It would be nice. Too bad. You're a criminal. Live with the consequences. One inmate, according to Wolf, said, "How do we feel safe in our community? When we reach out for help, we get nothing. There has been an assault on a woman, and we still are silenced. Does anyone care that we are being forced to house with 6'2", 250 plus pounds men with penises that are here for brutally raping women?" The female inmate added, "We have been warned by the officials in this prison. More are coming with worse charges. Where is the safety concern for us? If we say we are in fear, we are the ones locked up." Wolf tweeted last week that 7 different people inside CCWF has said at least one woman, possibly more, is now pregnant after being housed with a male felon who was transferred to the women's prison under the new law. Our connections tell us that at least 3 of the men have now been moved to administrative segregation. Because this is private health data, we're not currently able to confirm any more than this, the organization added. Amber Jackson, an inmate at CCWF, told the Santa Monica Observer that some of the transgender inmates who were transferred still had penises and were having sex with female inmates. "Call yourself a woman all you want," Jackson said, "but when you have a man with a penis that works as it was designed to do, that's a problem in a women's prison group shower. That's a problem." Absolutely. This is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting that there's no concern for these women whatsoever, but the left is supposed to be caring about women and you know, tear down the patriarchy, but yet they're going to do that to women. Um okay. I didn't want actually something about wolves. Um let's go back to what this is actually called. Okay, Women's Liberation Front. I want to see exactly how you can get involved with that and help out. Um, it emerged in the late 1960s. It's a political alignment of women and feminist intellectualism, and it continued in the 1980s, primarily in the industrialized nations of the Western world, which affected great change throughout the world. So that's great. But how can you get involved? Um, like, I want a website, is what I want. Okay, that's from ThoughtCo, Wikipedia, Revolution, Nova Online. Okay. I want to know how you can help these women. How to help female inmates in California. forced to house oh, with men. I'm sure you can call like leaders and stuff. Um, so yeah, so there's lots of stories about this. I'm sure just calling like the senators and the local leaders of California and the people that work in the prison that run it. I'm sure that's a good way to get involved. Um, like I said, it's the California Institution for Women. The bill is California is SB 132, the Transgender Respect Agency and Dignity Act. Um, so it says this law, originally adopted by California State Senator Scott Wiener, requires not only that the Department of Corrections Rehabilitation ask each prisoner entering into custody of their gender identity, but it also requires the department to house the prisoner at a correctional facility designated for men or women based on the individual's preference. Well, I think let's just say this man has always said that he was a woman, and it's not just now all of a sudden I'm making it up because of a new law. Let's say that if he's not comfortable in a prison cell with men, I honestly would say too bad, shouldn't have committed a crime. But at the very least, have a separate housing unit for these men, because I can guarantee you any woman who pretends to be a man will be perfectly fine being housed with women, even if they say they're a man. It's just the men that are going to want to be housed with the women if they claim to be a woman. I would make a separate housing unit for those specific men because I'm not comfortable being around men. I'm a woman, but I only want to be around women because then I can have sex. So that's what I would do at the very least. I mean, at the very most. But honestly, I would just tell them, too bad, suck it up. You committed a crime. That's it is what it is. We don't give special privileges to criminals, but whatever. Um, So I was just looking through here just to see if like if it gives any options of what you can do to help fight back. Um, but I'll look into it. They're in contact with some activist organizations, so that's fine. But not only that, but it says here in 2018 that a similar disturbing case was reported in the UK where a biological male identified as a woman he was a convicted rapist and pedophile and was sent to an all women's prison, resulting in the sexual assault of 4 women. Then he was sent back to the men's prison only after 4. Um, he said the safety of all prisoners must be our absolute priority. Duh. Should have known that from the beginning. That's nuts. So Ken Ham, CEO and founder of Answers in Genesis, wrote an article in response to this news, stating when a society drifts from biblical truth, these are tragic consequences. As society drifts further from a biblical worldview based on the absolute authority of God's word, we see the tragic consequences highlighted in the news over and over again, Ham explained. In almost every country, prisons have been built and assigned as male or female facilities, he wrote. This has obviously been done based on biological gender and also for proper administrative and safety reasons. Now the Bible is clear that there are only 2 genders, male and female, Genesis 1:27. When you deny scripture and blur the lines between the sexes, you create confusion and open the door, as in this case, for sexual predators. Yep, absolutely. This article was from harbingersdaily.com. So if you want to help, if you want to know what you can do, just look it up. I'm sure there's some way you can get involved to help protect these women. I feel like that's pretty serious, to be honest. Um, the next article. Let's talk about what Biden is doing with our infrastructure bill and sneaking in a mileage tax on the middle class. So take a trip back in time with me. It's March 2021, an innocent time where we only assumed how bad Joe Biden was going to be before he validated those fears. Biden's transportation secretary, Poot Buttigieg, went on CNBC instead of mileage tax on the American citizens would be dope. If you drive, like most of us in the middle class do, we'd be taxed per mile we drove. A tax hike on the middle class tends not to be politically popular. Democrats usually have to lie and say their tax hikes are only on the billionaires. This was floated up as a trial balloon that was quickly popped. To quote Poot Buttigieg, the mileage tax was not part of the conversation about this infrastructure bill. Except, look what they're trying to sneak in the 2,700 plus page infrastructure bill, as per the Washington Times. Tucked within the 2,702-page infrastructure bill is obscure language requiring the Department of Transportation to test the feasibility of taxing drivers for the number of miles they travel. The tax would be broad enough to target any passenger motor vehicles, including light and medium to heavy duty trucks. The bill also requires Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg or their successors to report to Congress about the findings of the program within 3 years of its creation. Please hold your anger until the end. Those findings, the bill's authors say, can then be used by federal lawmakers to assess whether such a tax should be implemented. Okay, now, and when federal lawmakers assess the situation, what do you think a Democrat controlled Congress's assessment would be? 3 years from now would be after the midterm elections. I'd like to think Democrats will no longer be in control. I also wouldn't bet the rent against Republicans finding a way to muck that up. A mileage tax means for middle class Americans, particularly those of us in suburban and rural areas, everything we do becomes more expensive because we have to drive to get there. We have to drive to go to work. We have to drive to buy groceries and other goods we need to survive. Goods that are already more expensive under Joe Biden, using fuel that is already more expensive under Joe Biden. But hey, at least he's not a jerk on Twitter, am I right? Here's a thing you need to remember about when Democrats float trial balloons for policies they know will be unpopular with the American people. The policies are coming whether the American people like it or not. The trial balloon is just to see how much Democrats need to lie or be deceitful about it. Biden's mileage tax is the latest example. So, so scary because I, it's so expensive to do anything these days. And it's like, I mean, like, I understand why they do it because they mostly just want you to be poor. I know why they're doing it, but I don't understand how you come to that point of you're that evil and wicked that you want to do this to your fellow citizens. I don't get how you want to do that to people. I don't know how you come to that point in life. I don't believe these people were born evil. I don't know what happened. I don't know what their upbringing was. I don't know if it was they started out with good intentions and the more money they made, they realized they could get more power. I don't know what it is, but it's a sad state when that's what happens to our leaders and we can't trust them anymore. Nor can we afford to really live in society anymore. It's really it's told you it's a bleak situation. It really is. Um I'm going to talk about this if it'll let me. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about China's nuclear threat against Japan. I feel like that's pretty important. Um, it says hybrid warfare and the end of minimum deterrence, however you want to say it. A video recently released by Chinese media directly threatens Japan with a nuclear first strike. The video states, when we liberate Taiwan, if Japan dares to intervene by force, even if it only deploys one soldier, one plane, and one ship, we will not only return reciprocal fire, but also start a full scale war against Japan. We will use nuclear bombs first. This is a serious threat against a non nuclear state coming from a power with a long declared no first use nuclear policy. This clearly signals a departure from a strategy of minimum deterrence. With the level of control possessed by the Chinese Communist Party, it would be difficult to argue that the producers of the video went rogue with these threats. According to reports, The video was reposted by a CCP channel, making it likely that the video was intended as a coercive measure to threaten the use of nuclear weapons in order to achieve a strategic foreign policy objective, such as the invasion or liberation of a sovereign state, is to use a nuclear arsenal potentially as a component of a hybrid warfare strategy. This use of nuclear coercion doesn't align itself with the minimum deterrent strategy that aims to deter military aggression. A state employing a minimum deterrent strategy will generally possess just enough deliverable and survivable nuclear weapons to ensure a successful retaliatory strike. Hybrid warfare is defined as a continuation of foreign policy, utilizing a combination of unconventional hard power and or subversive instruments to achieve strategic objectives. In this case of China's hybrid warfare campaign against Taiwan, it has made nuclear threats against Japan as a warning against allied intervention. It has consistently conducted excursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone using fighters and bombers. It has executed numerous cyber attacks against Taiwan. It has released propaganda threatening Taiwan, and President Xi Jinping has pledged to reunify Taiwan with China and smash any attempts at formal independence. These measures aim to weaken Taiwan's resistance and alliances, making it easier for the CCP to fulfill its objective of annexing the island. The ancient Chinese strategist and philosopher Sun Tzu states, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." China's display and threats of military power, in addition to its propaganda and cyber attacks, aim to demonstrate to Taiwan and its allies that its reunification is a fait, is it fait accompli? Is that how you say it? Fait accompli? Yeah, and that the CCP will use any means, including nuclear weapons, to achieve this. The ultimate Chinese goals of this strategy, in line with Sun Tzu's supreme art of war, are for the Taiwanese populace to realize that resistance is futile and willingly reunify with mainland China without a fight, and for Taiwan's allies to realize that the protection of Taiwan is not worth the cost. What makes China's nuclear threat dangerous is not only the intent but the capability. China has deployed nuclear DF-21 medium-range ballistic missiles and nuclear DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missiles that have the range to strike any target in Japan. The use of these missiles against Japan would leave the Chinese arsenal of intercontinental ballistic missiles, such as the silo-based DF-5, road-mobile DF-31, and newer DF-41, to be held in reserve in case the United States launches a strike in retaliation for an attack on its ally. China knows that these are calculations that must be made by the US, Japan, and its allies in defense of Taiwan. So, what can be done to counter the CCP's use of nuclear coercion as a component of hybrid warfare and its departure from a minimum deterrent strategy? The first action should be to disregard China's no first use nuclear policy. This is a clear fallacy and must be recognized as such. China is modernizing its nuclear structure and is using it to coerce a no first use policy, which China has allegedly committed to, only allows the use of nuclear weapons in retaliation for a nuclear strike. The US and its allies need to disregard China's no first use claims in order to clearly establish strategies to counter nuclear coercion and deter possible Chinese use of nuclear weapons. As the only power with the real capability to combat China in relation to Taiwan, it's critical that the U.S. sends clear signals to deter China and reassure allies. The CCP must have no doubt that any use of nuclear weapons on a U.S. ally under the extended deterrence umbrella will be met with a retaliatory nuclear strike. This signaling can include public diplomatic reassurance to allies, deterrence flights of B 2 and B 52 nuclear capable strategic bombers, the continuation of exercises such as Talisman Sabre with Australia and the Malabar, naval exercise with Quad partners Japan, India, and Australia, and the continuation of freedom of navigation operations in the vicinity of disputed islands in the South China Sea. The U.S. should consider all options, including negotiations with Japan to deploy land based nuclear medium or intermediate range ballistic missiles in Japanese territory. The offer of U.S. controlled missiles will act to prevent Japan from deciding to build its own nuclear weapon capability in response to the Chinese threat, thus preventing further nuclear proliferation. The U.S. should also recommence negotiations with Japan regarding the deployment of an is it Aegis Ashore or Terminal High Altitude Area Defense or THAAD anti-ballistic missile system within Japanese territory to complement the naval units already equipped with Aegis. I don't know how to say that. These tangible deployment options will reinforce signaling to mitigate Chinese miscalculation. In 2014, Russian President Vladimir Putin executed a hybrid warfare strategy against Ukraine to annex Crimea and unleash an ongoing war in the Donbass region. This has led to thousands of deaths and the drowning of a civilian airliner. Putin wasn't effectively deterred from this action. If China isn't effectively deterred in its hybrid warfare strategy to take control of Taiwan, the consequences at best could be the annexation of Taiwan and the end of the U.S. alliance system. At worst, the consequences could be millions of deaths as a result of a nuclear strike. President Xi needs to understand, without a doubt, that any use of nuclear weapons or the invasion of Taiwan will have costs outweighing the benefits. The first action taken by the U.S. and its allies must be the recognition that China has moved on from its minimum deterrent strategy. Well, I can tell you, as a weak, spineless troll that Biden is, he will not send a strong message to deter China from this. And I don't think that they would honestly care if they annexed Taiwan and we lost Japan as allies and things like that. I don't think they'd care. I don't think they just don't care. I was curious as to what this exactly means. So we're going to look it up. Um, okay.
Fait
So,
accompli.
fait accompli. Well, that's not right.
Fait accompli.
Fait accompli. That's how you would say it. So it's a thing accomplished and presumably irreversible. By the time we learned about the decision, it was already a fait accompli. The outcome on the Texas voting bill may be a fait accompli. Okay, cool. So now we know a new word. You learn something new every day. Actually, I get daily definitions of words every day in my email. It's like a new word of the day. And you get the definition. It tells you when the word came about, like mid 16th century. It's Latin, it's French, it's whatever. And then, like, after the end of the week, they'll give you like a refreshment quiz and they ask you questions to see if you can remember it. I like it because I like to learn new words. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. I'm going to leave it there. I think I have a fun episode for tomorrow, so I hope you'll join me and listen to that one. But before I end out, what I do want to say, and I'm sure he'll never see it, but I'm going to do it anyway, is since I was on his website, I want to wish Steven Crowder, I want to give him some get well wishes after his heart surgery. I hope that everything continues to go well. I know he had a really super big scare of not being able to breathe and having to be rushed to the ER. So I hope that everything is okay and that he's doing better and that he'll get well soon. I miss watching the show. I can't wait for him to come back, but I know that he needs time to heal. So anyway, well wishes to you, Steven, and I hope everything is good. And also that your wife is doing good with her twins. Anyway, please join me on my Facebook at Lauren Collins. Just gotta say something. You can email me, gotta say something 21 at gmail.com. Join my subreddit community at r slash just gotta say something. If you are a blind viewer, please find me on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts on. Leave me a review, subscribe to the podcast, and if you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and share this video. You can comment and I will get back to you. But most importantly, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know when new videos are uploaded. It really would mean a lot to me. And don't forget to subscribe to The Scott Ford Show. Isaac Hayes with the Cajun Conservative and his Christian podcast, Brothers Just Searching, and TV's Robinson Woke. Absolutely great people. And Nate Savage, Savage 5050. Check them all out. They're really great. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Have a good day, and God bless.